Tēnā koutou katoa. No mai, haere mai, welcome to this virtual hui we have for the performing arts industry called Joe Anderson Tako Ingoa. Welcome to those of you watching on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be having this conversation together for up to the next 90 minutes, and it will be recorded, and you will be able to keep watching it after this live stream now. So welcome to all of you, and first of all, big aroha from all of us to you. Let's open with a karakia. Pouhihiri, pourarama, po o te whakaaro, po o te aroha, te pou I hiri nei I a tātou, mauri ora ki a tātou, haumie, hui, tai kie.
Kia ora.
We're thinking of all of you, wherever you are around Aotearoa, around the world. It's a very challenging time that we're in. And so Auckland Live and PANNZ have come together to facilitate this kōrero today. It's a chance for us to come together to connect with each other in these isolated times, and to share knowledge. This is the first, but there will be one every week with different panel members to talk about what we need to talk about together. So we have three amazing panel members today. We have Kath Cardiff from Creative New Zealand, and I'll introduce everyone a bit more fully as I welcome them. We have Kat Ruka, who is the Artistic Director of Tempo Festival, and also from Mana Moana Creatives. And also we have Megan Peacock Boyle, who is from Toi Toi, Hawke's Bay Arts Centre, and a member of PANNZ, the chair of PANNZ and EVANS. So how today will run is each of these three members will speak for a little bit of time, sharing whatever they need to. And then after our three panel members have spoken, we will answer questions that come from you who are out there watching. So please feel free to send in your questions anytime. We have Helena and Heather collating those questions and feeding them into us, and we should have at least an hour to answer any questions that come up. So welcome again to you all. I know that everyone is feeling different in this time. It's very challenging for some, it's hopeful for others, and also for many of us, things are changing from minute to minute. So just thinking of you all in whatever situation you're in. Kia ora. Okay, let's begin by welcoming Kath Cardiff. So Kath, tēnā koe. Kath is the Senior Manager of Arts Development at Creative New Zealand. She leads the teams who run the funding programs. So I'm just having a little technical issue on my screen, people. Thank you. So leads the funding programs and assessments, including the Tōtara and Kahikatea programs, and also the special opportunities for artists and initiatives such as the Venice Biennale and the Toi Rangatahi Funds. Also, so you know, Kath was a dancer and choreographer, producer, director. She's had the classic sort of artist pathway of having done everything, and also set up her own arts management company for dance and theatre. She's worked at Auckland Live, and has then been at CNZ as a dance and theatre advisor, and has assisted in setting up capability building and international programs. So a big history there. Kath, welcome along. Tēnā koe, over to you.
Well, tēnā koe, Joe, and tēnā koutou katoa. Morena, everybody. Firstly, just to tautoko what Joe said, acknowledging what everybody is going through. I mean, an extraordinary time and extraordinary circumstances and extraordinary responses. So not only are there some really heavy duty impacts on everybody, but there are also some pretty amazing responses already, particularly from our sector. So I just want to acknowledge everybody who's been active in reaching out, including PANNZ and Auckland Live. both organisations I've had a lot to do with over the years, and have long held friendships in those organisations. And really, those relationships now are more important than ever. Using your networks, reaching out to the people who can assist, and just to, to get support from everybody. And I mean, that's already happening, as is obvious from this particular hui today. It's obvious that what our sector is going through is extraordinary, along with everybody else. And I just want to acknowledge that we are acutely aware at Creative New Zealand of these circumstances, both from our own understanding and knowledge of the sector, but also from the amazing feedback that we've been getting from everybody, outlining the situation that they're in. And it's not just about loss of income for us, it's also about loss of opportunity. So the loss of opportunity to practice, the loss of opportunity to engage with audiences, the loss of opportunity to collaborate with your peers. That's an enormous thing which is impossible to quantify. But quantify we must in terms of responding. And as you know, Creative New Zealand has launched an emergency response package, which we're finalising the details of. But if you want specific information about that, the best thing to do is to go to our webpage, creativenewzealand.govt.nz, and click on the COVID-19 section, which will give you today an updated list of frequently asked questions. So I'll go into that in a little bit, but I guess it would also be useful for you to understand what the impact has been on us as an organisation and as individuals. So this time last week, I sat in an emergency meeting at Creative New Zealand and outlined to all our leaders the situation, which was that we had 24 funding programs open, 14 of them were at assessment or moderation, 500 applications, and of that, the overwhelming percentage would not be able to be pursued under a lockdown circumstance. And of course, that hadn't been announced at that time, but I had been listening to the amazing Ashley Bloomfield, who's our Director General of Health, and he'd had, and amongst all the information, which there was billions of incoming, he said one thing that really resonated with me, which is think about what you might be doing in 2 weeks' time and do it now. So in order for us to respond to these extraordinary times, we needed to do a very hard thing, which was to stop doing what we were doing. And I know that that was very difficult for a lot of people, including people inside our organisation. It's not an easy thing to change the ship halfway through, but change we must, and change we did. And so that allowed us to refocus all our resources, including our people, as well as money, on creating programs that would respond to this situation that we're in now. So if you go to our website and you look at the COVID-19 response section, you'll see there's a lot of information there about the WINZ wage subsidy and leave support, about our emergency response package, about the eligibility as far as we know at this stage for those packages, and a bit more of a description of what they are. And I'm more than happy to answer more questions as we go through. But the one thing that I would say is to really encourage everybody to go to the WINZ wage subsidy section, which there are links to in the document, and also some descriptions of what you will need to do to access that support. It's actually really simple. They're not asking for a great deal. It's a very high trust situation. and it is the quickest way to get emergency relief at this stage. Our funding programs won't be open till the 14th of April, but we will be publishing all the information that you need to be able to apply to them prior to that. And I don't have a definite date for that now, but we are working very hard to make that either the end of this week or beginning of the next week. I think that's probably enough for now. I'm really happy to take questions if there are any, except to say once again how much we empathise with everybody, how hard we're working to respond, and how much goodwill and support we send. Most of the people who work at Creative New Zealand are either ex-artists like myself or have been in the industry and understand only too well what the impact is, not the least on individuals, but also on the organisations that we fund on an ongoing basis, many of whom are going to incur huge losses in terms of the revenue that they're able to generate in the next while, and nobody knows how long that is. So I'd like to acknowledge that terrible uncertainty that everybody's working with, including us. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Kath. Thank you, and thank you to all of your colleagues at Creative New Zealand. I know many people are very grateful for that WINZ wage subsidy and the information that came out quickly about that. I know others have struggled to access it or know how to fill it out, but I know a good number of people who have been able to. So let's share knowledge. If we know, let's help others do it. But thank you, Kath. Appreciate your working under challenging times as well. And there have been some questions already start to come in. Great, so next let's welcome Kat Ruka, who is the Artistic Director of Tempo Dance Festival as of last year, I believe, Kat, and also your spokesperson for Mana Moana Creatives, which is a Facebook group that's been set up to provide manakitanga for Indigenous creatives of Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. So welcome, tēnā koe, Kat.
Kia ora, Joe. Ngā mihi mahana ki a koutou. Ko puhanga tohara te maunga, ko tāhiki te awa, ko ngā toki matawhaurua te waka, ko mahuri te marae, ko Ngāti Pākau te hapu, ko ngā puhi te iwi, no hokianga ahau. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you so much for allowing me to be here today. I guess today I'm contributing to this kōrero as a representation of Indigenous creatives, and by Indigenous I mean those who whakapapa back to all of the lands within Te Moana Nui a Kiwa. And though I can't speak for everybody today, I just want to reassure those people that they are being represented and looked after in these conversations. First of all, a mihi to you, Kath. I can only begin to imagine how hard it must be for you guys at this moment. And I have to say, as somebody who is working for an investment client of PANNZ, we've been so supported by you guys. And I know a lot of my artist friends are feeling very supported and just really, really thankful for the very quick responses. So a huge mihi to you. I guess what I wanted to do today is just bring everybody's attention to some things that are happening for our Indigenous creatives at this time. Most of us will be aware of a Facebook group that was set up by Kane Forbes and a beautiful group of people called the Aotearoa Arts and Events COVID-19 Crisis Page. I believe that group was set up on Monday last week. It could have even been earlier. And that page has just opened up such an incredible, processes of whakawhanaungatanga at this very difficult time. So I wanted to acknowledge that group. Out of that group has stemmed a Facebook group called Mana Moana Creatives. We came together and realised and recognised that there are particularly specific cultural needs coming for our people at this time. And we wanted to create a really culturally safe space for people to voice their concerns where they didn't need to feel whakama or shy about their particular needs. And that group is looked after by myself, Boni Tukiwaho, Amelia Puia Taylor, Alicia Hiti, Amber Kareem, Kathy Livermore, and Raymond Sangapuletele. We are really interested in how we can manaki each other, and also understand our specific needs at this time around holistic health and hauora. There are some incredible things coming forward. People are offering their rongoa, their Māori traditional healing practices. We have people coming forward offering sound healing. So we have taonga pōro coming in. People are sharing their knowledge around the maramataka, around our Māori calendar. People are doing errands for each other's kuia and kaumatua at this time, and for our most vulnerable whānau. There's a group of leaders who have come together to continually feed in culturally appropriate resources. And people are just generally sharing their pūrākau, their stories around what's happening for them. I think something that's really important to mention is creativity for us is often, it is our well-being. It is where we go to feel safe. It is the place where we whakawhanaungatanga with each other. I think something else that's important to mention for our people too is how intergenerational we are. And often the messaging around, looking after elderly, going to visit elderly and checking up on them. Well, more often than not, our elderly are in our homes. And so we have some nuanced ways of having to negotiate those things. Something else that I wanted to mention too for our people is that often when we graduate from our performing arts institutions, we become the person that is expected to provide financially for our family as soon as we graduate. And so the financial repercussions of this is deep for us, being often the sole financial provider for our extended whānau. And that's not to say that that's not the case for others, but just to acknowledge that. And often, our Pacific whānau, our creatives might only be sort of second or third generation New Zealanders, and so we often don't have that generational stability to fall back on during these times. So we just wanted to really make sure that people that are in that situation are being seen, are being looked after, are being heard in these higher level conversations. The other thing I wanted to acknowledge too is for those of us who have elderly who are really unwell, we will potentially miss out on sending them off for tangi, as a lot of our marae, particularly ones up in the northern area, I know for sure have started to put rahui bans on people going to the marae. So a lot of our people are going to have to farewell our elderly in the home and then straight to the urupa. So there's, again, particularly deep things that we are considering at this time. I think that's enough from me for now. I just want to acknowledge everybody working hard in the Mana Moana Creatives Facebook page to make sure our Indigenous creatives are being uplifted and looked after at this time. There's also some other amazing groups popping up. One that I came across last night is called Calm Our Community, which is run by some younger creatives, Māori and Pacifica creatives. And, like our millennials are so good at constantly staying on the videos and on the Zooms with each other. And it was a really, really incredible thing to come across. So we are definitely coming together and banding together to look after each other. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Kat. Beautiful to hear some of those stories of sharing of knowledge that is happening. And also Boni Tukiwaho has sent through a number of resources, particularly around hauora well-being, mental health, and they will be shared to the PANNZ Facebook link as well. So kia ora, thank you so much. Thank you for what Mana Moana Creatives are doing. And thank you also for mentioning the Aotearoa Arts and Events COVID page, which has been a real lifeline for a lot of people. So next, we would love to welcome Megan Peacock-Coyle, who is the chair of PANNZ and also the manager of Toi Toi, where we personally were with our company only about 6 weeks ago in a very different world. Megan is also the PANNZ representative for the EVANZ board, and Megan's going to explain a bit more about what EVANZ is and does. But welcome, Megan. Tēnā koe, over to you.
Tēnā koe, Joe. Tēnā koutou e te whānau. So just want to let you know that the PANNZ team are working really hard around the hub and portal for the industry. So they're really trying to stay up to date on all the news that's going on around New Zealand. It's also a really good platform for us to all connect each week, and I think connection is, you know, what we need to do right now. The team are working hard to also maintain the commitment to delivering the tours that Tour Makers has done in the past. Obviously, this is going to happen in a different way, potentially, but there is always that focus on the artists, presenters, and of course, audiences all over New Zealand. If you do have any questions for the PANNZ team, please contact them on info@panz.org.nz. EVANZ is the Entertainment Venues Association of New Zealand. So this is a national body that has about 120 venue members all over New Zealand, and we come together twice a year to discuss all of our venue issues, from operational to marketing to audience development to everything that we do in those venues. And this industry at the moment has sent out a survey to all the venue members, and we're trying to they are trying to collect data to understand the impact on venues, because I think we've worked out that there's only about 40% of venues in New Zealand that are council run, which means they're funded by ratepayers. The rest of the venues are run by trusts, which obviously creates a big issue when we're losing sponsorships. Different funding foundations in New Zealand are going to be struggling to have money to be able to support those venues. It's really important that as an industry, you know, the venues are there to hold the artists, and you know, Manaaki is very important in our venues and how we hold people, how we welcome people in, and supporting our artists to make work, especially in New Zealand. And I'd like to mihi to Kath as well around CNZ support for the whole industry and making sure that we are all going to get back up on our feet. For venues, obviously, without artists, we have no product for audiences. So, you know, we're really feeling it for a lot of artists that are doing it hard, and you know, our thoughts are out to them. Something that we've been discussing is around how do we keep our audiences engaged in our communities, and most importantly, post-pandemic, how do we re-engage our audiences? You know, how do we look at incentives to ensure that we get these audiences coming back? How do we make sure that artists in New Zealand are being supported by venues to have that work coming back? So, you know, thinking about paying artists in your local community to put on free concerts for the community to come back in. Also thinking about post-pandemic, how do we as an industry actually thank our essential workers? You know, could we put on a nationwide concert in all venues in New Zealand just for our essential workers to do a really big thank you and engage them as well? So lots and lots of questions, and I think this is what's exciting about all these different hubs and portals. I had down to also mention around the Aotearoa Arts and Events COVID-19 crisis page. This is a great page because it's providing support and ideas for everybody in the arts industry to talk to each other. So yeah, this is such an uncertain time, and we don't know how long it's going to last, or how long it's going to take us to all get back on our feet. But as long as we keep connecting and sharing ideas, we can all support each other. So mā te mahi tahi ka te puna toi mō te katoa. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Megan. Thank you. It's great to hear how things are looking from your perspective, and it's great to hear so many people talking about knowing that we need to hold our artists who need to be held even at the best of times in the uncertain situations. We are the original precariats. Well, there's a lot of original precariats, but it's even, we are placed in a challenging time now. We have our creativity though as well, and we can solve some of the problems that are around us. So it's great to be able to talk together about ways that we are finding to do that, and to give each other encouragement. So thank you so much, Kat and Megan and Kath. We now have some questions that have been coming in. They're all for you, Kath.
I've looked at them. I'm happy to go through them. Do you want to read out the question and I'll respond? Or
yeah, great. And I think, Kat and Megan, feel free to add your knowledge and perspective in as well. Why don't we begin with this question of what specialist focus will be given to supporting Māori and Pasifika artists and makers, given that the vast majority are independents? If you want to start with that, Kath.
Yes, no, totally acknowledge that, that those two sectors are definitely highly characterised by independent practice, as well as some really effective organisations. And so our legislation is undeniable and governs everything we do. And our legislation says that we must give effect to support for Māori and Pasifika particularly. And we will continue to do that. So any new program that we offer will have specific budget assigned to those communities, and our program will respond as it does now to those applications that come under either Māori or Pacific, which is something that the applicant themselves chooses. So at the moment, all our funding programs run on the basis of Mana Māori, Mana Pasifika, and general. So we will continue to service in that way and use the tangata whenua, mana whenua assessors wherever we can if we're assessing. If we're not assessing, so for instance, our emergency relief package for independent artists will probably not be externally assessed. It'll just be a very simple form that you fill out, and with proof of income loss or opportunity loss, and it will be automatically dispersed regardless. But yes, we will hold fast to our existing principles when it comes to responding to those communities.
Kat or Megan, did you want to add anything in?
No.
Okay. So our next question is, will there be a directive from Creative New Zealand for annually funded clients to pay a percentage of cancelled income to contractors for 2020? So this is another question around independence, i.e. publicists, actors, designers, crew who have had verbal agreements with their company. There's word on the street that project clients cannot keep part of their fee to pay out these contractors for work confirmed in the next 3 months. Does that make sense to you, Kath? Are you happy to answer that?
Yeah, I think there's two bits to that. One is around the Tōtara and Kākatea clients. So our package includes a package for them, and that is to do with their ongoing business. We're not in a position to issue directives to those organisations, but we do encourage, wherever possible, them to align with whatever the program purpose is. And it's certainly a big deal for us that independent contractors who were planning on deriving income from that source may no longer be able to do so. So for independent contractors, there are three areas of support. One is the WINS support, Work and Income New Zealand. The second is our emergency relief package as an independent practitioner. And then, of course, there's any arrangements that you might have had with your third-party employers or people who are contracting you. And I have spoken to many of our Tōtara and Kahikatea clients, and all of them are terribly concerned about honouring those agreements. So through one avenue or another, I think that you can take some comfort that everybody is moving heaven and earth to respond to that. The second part of that question, word on the street, is that project clients cannot keep part of their fee. I think this relates to people who are funded through our arts grants programs. So the best advice I can give you there is that you go to our website, click on the COVID-19 response section, and within that you'll see a link which takes you to advice about currently funded projects. That means projects that had been funded prior to this situation and may have been partway through or about to start. And you'll see there that it's broken into 9 different scenarios. So it's incredibly detailed. And I just want to take my hat off to our funding services team who've pulled this together. So for instance, scenario 1 is due to COVID-19, the arts projects I've already received Creative New Zealand funding for has been postponed, or I wish to delay the project. And there's very detailed information there about what you can and can't expect from us. And it's very, very generous. So if you've spent some of your grant, you can reallocate your existing grant on a personal costs or contracts with freelancers and artists who would have been involved in delivering your project. You just need to tell us what you want to do. So I think you'll find that all those scenarios cover what people's questions are. And rather than just read them out to you, I just would encourage you to go to that part of the site. And if for some reason you can't find your specific circumstances there, then just go direct to our COVID-19 response email and you'll get an answer very quickly.
Thank you, Kath. I think that you've covered another question that's come in, but I'm just going to read it out just to make sure. Can Kath talk about flexibility around program delivery of projects that are already funded? Can project timing be extended? And what will an organisation need to provide around this? I think you've just answered that, but just, is there anything else to add in that one?
Yeah, so yes, it can be extended, and there are a range of scenarios, as I've outlined, 9 different ones to be precise. So yeah, to get chapter and verse on that, I can't keep that in my head necessarily, but I would go to that section of our website and just go through it and see if you're covered. And if you're not, we're really keen to hear what it is that isn't.
Great, thank you, Kath. Let's go to an everyone question now. This question is, how can we work together to advocate for more NZ arts on TV? Channels are still continuing their sports section, which is a non-event. Artists and cultural providers are providing beautiful projects. So Kat or Megan, who would like to start with that question?
Yeah, amazing question. I've been thinking the same, sitting there watching the news every night going, wow, we could just contribute so much to the conversation and just the general uplifting of whole water and well-being of our country right now. I don't know how to answer that question around how we do that, but certainly I think we would do well to just begin by gathering together online and having those conversations around who we might know within the television sector, and let's draw up a document together and get that moving.
Yeah, I could probably add a bit to that, not about that specific issue, because I agree, and I found it incredibly galling over the last week to, to sit through the sort of, impact as opposed to the arts and cultural impact. However, I've noticed that lately they have been, at least on Channel One, they've been introducing more of the impact on artists, but it's more specifically about individual groups. Like they did a thing on Fat Freddy's Drop last night, which is an example as opposed to an overview. And I agree that that's very irritating that doesn't happen. We are also, another part of the organisation from the one that I oversee is developing an advocacy plan to meet this situation. So I can feed this question through to them. I'm sure that they've already thought about an aspect of that. Yeah, I don't know that we can change the Titanic there, but we can certainly do our bit to get those impact stories, both positive and negative, because a lot of what you see on that section is negative, out to the media in a really clever way. And I know that the team, sorry, I've got a fly buzzing around me, I hope you can't hear it. I know that our team's working very hard on that plan at the moment, and I think that next week we'll see something really positive come out about that.
Megan, did you want to add anything?
I was just going to say, exactly the same sort of feelings, but you see it on Facebook. Everything that's coming through your feed is apart from around the virus, is creative. It's creatives trying to engage and keep in touch and connect. And yeah, I just wish that our TV would sort of pick up on that. But I think, Kath, it sounds like that we can sort of try and make some sort of comment about it and see what happens. It is a changing world, and yeah, hopefully this highlights something as well.
Yep.
Thanks. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, panel. Now, one suggestion has come in, which we have made a note of, that for future panels, could we please invite someone with a public health background to provide advice on likely long-term implications on large events gatherings into the future? That suggestion has been noted. And if you have any other suggestions for future panels, you can send that through to the info@PANNZ. I know that in Australia, anything has been cancelled up to December. There's just no one is expecting anything to be happening in that large scale realm for quite a few months to come. I want to go back to one of the first questions that came in, which is for you again, Kath. It's someone from the Massey Henderson local board interested in the impact on artists in their local board area.
Yeah, I think probably the most effective thing to do there is to look at your existing relationships, because you've probably got them more strongly than we even would have at that level, at that local level. But there would be a database held by the local Creative Communities scheme, which would give you a good indicator of who's operating, not just artists, but groups also in your area. And I would start with that database and go out to them personally as a board. I gather you're asking on behalf of a community board. Go out to your community yourself to find out what those impacts are, because I would not have that information at my fingertips. You're closer to the ground than we are in that regard.
Thank you, Kath. Can I throw one more at you? That was one of our early questions too. Can you shed light on, can you shed light on the calculation of the New Zealand arts economy calculation process?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. The economic impact of the arts and cultural sector as a whole, of course, is much bigger than Creative New Zealand. However, the most up-to-date information we have on that is contained within our New Zealanders in the Arts survey, which we do once every 3 years and was intended to be redone this year. So it'd be really interesting to see the differences there. But particularly within the Audience Atlas section, there's a very good calculation there on the actual size of the market and the size of the dollar spend that happens within that market. It's a bit different from economic impact, but it does give you the size of it. As well, the New Zealand Statistics site is probably the most reliable in terms of their census and other reports that they do on household income spending. And then, of course, there's various other agencies who work outside of our remit, like the Film Commission, the Music Industry Commission, publishing, and other commercial entities which contribute to the economic impact of the arts overall. I don't think there's any one particular figure that encompasses all of it, and probably the information is collected on a different basis anyway. But yeah, there's various places you can go to get that information.
Thank you, Kath. Let's go to an everyone question before I come back to you again, Kath, with a few kind of do I qualify questions. But I'd like to take this one to everyone to see what you're thinking about this. Is there a willingness and ability to adapt to what this new environment will be? Or will the aim be to return to business as usual prior to COVID-19 as soon as possible? So yeah, are we going to go, what's this post-pandemic thing going to be like? Are we aiming to get back to where we were, or are we just open to whatever this new world will be? Would you like to start, Megan, with that one?
Sure. I think it's incredibly important that we're open to change. You know, we're an industry that's always kind of forcing change, you know, environmentally, in our ecology, and I think it would be an opportunity lost if we did just want to go back to the way it was before. I think this is an opportunity. I think the world has changed, and not just in our environment, but our worldwide, you know, economically, capitalism, yeah, you know, it's all going to change, and hopefully for the good, because we want to survive, we want to come out of this. So yeah, I'm hoping that it is a new world, and that but in that new world we are all thriving.
Awesome. How about you, Kat? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think what this situation has done is brought some urgency to a conversation that we've been needing to have. I think that personally, as a leader within the dance sector, I have allowed this new normal to impact on all of the assumptions that I hold internally within myself as a leader and as an artist, and observing the process of things crumbling, my assumptions, my patterns, my ways of thinking. And through inviting that paradigm shift in, my personal approach to things is allowing me to see new ways forward. It's also allowing me to open myself up even more to rangatahi, because they are actually forging this conversation, and they have the tools and the methods and practices that we need. Being digital natives, they're very familiar with those things. And so it's actually a really humbling process to be able to realise that it's our rangatahi that are going to lead us the way forward. I'm absolutely open to change, new ways of doing things. And I think the other thing, just as a sort of side note to this conversation, is the way that I'm starting to think about productivity. I think in the arts sector, we have become so used to being overachievers, to being hyper productive all of the time. And I think this new normal is allowing me to see that we don't actually have to be productive all of the time. We can settle into approaching life a bit more gently. And I think that is softening and an internal softening and also softening of leadership is something that I'm really thankful for and that I will hold on to as we move forward into this new normal.
Oh, thank you, Kat. I love this image of this crumbling and seeing, what remains beneath that and what is important. And I really hear you on that productivity as well. By backing off, personally, I have been able to create a whole lot more. And I know that the earth is grateful for this slowing down that is happening at the moment. So there are many beautiful outcomes to come, particularly if we keep working together to support those who are vulnerable through this. So thank you everyone for those images and thoughts. Sounds like everyone's feeling pretty open towards what a new world could look like. Kath, can I come back to you with a few more questions? I know you can see the document as well. People are just wanting to know if they fit into the categories or not. So can we start with this one? It might be a quick answer. If individual artists have already accessed wage support through WINZ, will they still be able to access the CNZ emergency relief package?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, we're probably going to make it conditional on that happening first.
Great.
Not that you have to have got it, but you have to have applied for it. But people will see that the wage support through WINZ is only for a certain amount, and it doesn't actually add up to what we think is desirable and have published through our survey sustainability of artists. And so we will be topping up the difference between what we've already published as being a desirable level of income, which is $26 an hour.
Another one for you, do CNZ's emergency relief funds also apply to people who were employees of an arts organisation but got made redundant during this period? This group does not currently get support from wage subsidy.
That's a really interesting question, and I don't know the answer. I'm sorry, I'd have to take that under advisement. I wasn't aware that if you've been made redundant, you weren't eligible for the WINZ package, so I'd like to test that. And if for some reason that wasn't able to be, if you weren't eligible further, but thanks very much for the question. It's a good one. And I don't know the answer to that yet.
Thank you, Kath, for being open to more questions coming to you. I'm sure there will be more questions, and it's great to know that you and Creative New Zealand are ready to take them. Here's another one, a question regarding an organisation in a transitional phase from an investment client to project funded. Is specific thinking being given to this vulnerable group, acknowledging that everyone is vulnerable currently? Any thought to extending or supporting clients in the transition arrangements? Thank you, Kath.
Yeah, that is a very small group, a very, very small subset of a much larger group. And no, I haven't spent any time thinking about specific arrangements for them. However, I think that when you see the detail of the packages that we are offering, you'll see that everybody is covered.
So lots of questions coming through about CNZ grants, and I'm sure there'll be many more to come. I'd like to go though to a question for everyone. Is there a capability to bring together a broader working group to collect the info outside of the CNZ remit, similar to Live Performance Australia? Does that question make sense to our panel? Who would like to respond?
Yep, sure. Yes, I think there is absolutely that opportunity, and I think that's where the Performing Arts Network of New Zealand can take a lead. I'm very aware of Live Performance Australia and a good model in a way that we could do that. So yes, I think that's absolutely something that PANNZ can pick up.
Okay. Can I encourage people, if they have the broad questions as well. It's great to hear those ones about what kind of world are we returning to. Here's another one for you, Kath. Some of the CNZ applications that were submitted in the last round were submitted to seek funding for organisations to be able to function, staff, etc. Is this still possible with the new packages?
Yes, there won't be anything that we won't fund in the new packages that isn't logical or tenable. I mean, we can't fund, obviously, live performances to audiences where there are congregations of people. But until I have the precise detail of those programs, I can't say specifically, but yes, if you've got a new project. So if you go to our website and read what the package is designed to do, you will see that there are two streams within grant independents and individual artists. One is the emergency relief, which we've discussed, which is basically a top up of the WIN scheme, and the other is for projects up to 50k. And within that second group, I'm sure there'd be the potential for people to be able to function. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's designed to be a business continuity grant, or arts continuity grant. So of course, that, as before, you could apply for wages and ongoing staff costs, and that will be the same again.
Kath, is that the resilience grants? Because there was another question about that. Is that the resilience grants you're referring to?
Yeah. So
Right.
there's the emergency relief grants for individuals, and which is an immediate income relief grant, and then there's the ongoing sustainability of your arts practice section, which is for up to 50k.
Great. So I hope that answers that question that someone sent through about the resilience grants. And I would also just encourage everyone to contact Creative New Zealand directly if you're unsure about whether you fit into a thing or not. Kath's indicated they're willing to receive inquiries, because the goal is to meet everyone's needs and acknowledge that people are in different situations. Let's go to a question for everyone about live and digital. I know a lot of people are feeling concerned who work in live performance that one of our main ways of being in the world is not available to us. And so there's this question of how we make our work available digitally. It'd be great to hear from you, Kat and Megan, what your thoughts are about, shifting mediums in that way, or where your excitements are.
Yeah, this is something that my team and I are giving a lot of thought at the moment. And really, we can only get so far with the knowledge and the methods and understandings that we have without needing to reach out to people working in, the digital world. It's one thing to dream and imagine what's possible around transitioning into the digital sphere, and then it's another thing to be actually able to do that well. I think, that question around whether or not CNZ would be open to considering funding applications for live performance to make that transition, that's a really good question. And I don't know that it solely, rests with CNZ. I think that there's a lot of work to do for the arts organisations themselves to build those capabilities and to forge those partnerships. And I think that's certainly something that Tempo is going to start looking at quite seriously. And so I think perhaps, next time we have a panel, or next time we start to have these conversations, we need to start inviting people in from digital sectors to be able to build that capability. So I guess, there's absolutely, I know that there's a huge interest out there, and I think we just really need to band together and not put all of the responsibility on CNZ, and to start sharing knowledge across our organisation.
Thanks, Kat. Megan.
Yes, I think Kat summed that up really well, and it is really hard because you know in the past, whenever you record live performance and you watch it, you know that you're not watching it live, and it becomes a recording of a live performance, and there's all of that kind of juxtaposition that takes away the specialness of live. So I think it is about a discussion and how do we engage live audiences as well. It's presenting the work at live digitally, but how does an audience that wants to engage in live performance, how do they receive that? And I think that's that discussion around how do we engage and re-engage. So I think we've just got to keep talking, and I think Kat's correct. It's all the different organisations that may have those capabilities, but how do we got to always be thinking about that audience as well and how they receive it.
Yes, and just to add to that, I think once when you're working within your organisation, if you come across knowledge around digital capability building, then please share that beyond your organisation. This is the time to share across those borders and really whakawhanaungatanga and ako, let's get into some reciprocity of learning and understanding.
Mm.
Kia ora, thank you. Kath, there's been a couple of questions related to that. I'm sure Creative New Zealand will be open to considering applications, or maybe I shouldn't say I'm sure, but a couple of questions.
No, absolutely. In fact, it says in the updated FAQs, which went up this morning. So, the Arts Continuity Grant up to 50k is for supporting creation of new work or the reframing of an existing project in the light of COVID-19, including creative and professional development, promotion and distribution, supporting new ways of working. And of course, that includes digital platforms.
Thank you. It's so wonderful to feel your flexibility as an organisation and responsiveness to what we're needing, how we're needing to shift in these times. There's been a little post come in acknowledging there are a number of specific surveys out there that are seeking to gather impact data from different parts of the industry. ETNZ, Creative Waikato, that's Entertainment Technology NZ, will also be shortly sending out one for people in the area. So that's just a flag that might be coming. Please keep sending your questions in. We don't have to go for 90 minutes, people who are watching, but now is your time if you have any more questions to send to our panel. So,
Joe,
yes.
Sorry, Joe, can I just talk to ETNZ and specifically around the impact on the technical industry? And I think this is what, we're all thinking about every element of what we do, but, particularly in our region, we have, technical hire companies, one in particular that does so much work for so many different events and organisations, and they now have no work, and it's absolutely terrifying for them because it's how do they keep their business going, how do they keep their staff employed. So I think, when we're thinking about our industry, it's really important to make sure we're thinking about those technical sides of things as well as every other part of the industry.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, we need to be thinking holistically, don't we, at the moment, and also not just in the arts industry, but where we fit and how we function and what we can offer to all of our people at the moment. How we can also help because we're needed. Okay, great. Well, panel, I'm not winding up quite yet, but I'm just wanting to let you know that when we finish, I'd love you to each just sort of finish with any final thoughts that you have or final images or stories you want to share with us before we close. I'm just going to see if there's any more questions have come through or if there's anything. Yes, there's one more here. For you, Kath, what about the development of new work that will premiere after the crisis, especially those with international components that can naturally work with online devising and rehearsals, etc.? Kath.
Yes, good question. It's been exercising my mind as well, that specific scenario. I guess the key is after the crisis, when is that? What will that be? How will we be responding? I don't want to rule this out at all, because I think that if that's part of your continuity of practice, then by all means apply. How it might be presented or distributed, I have absolutely no idea. And I would emphasize that our current packages are short term. So this money that we've allocated, the 16 million, is for between now and June, end of June, which is the end of our financial year. And at that point, we will be reevaluating before that point, we'll be reevaluating what new programs we might be offering, and whether that's a return to what we normally did, which would include this sort of activity, or whether it's a different transitional phase. I don't know. I think probably there will be a second phase of some description, and I'm basing that on our experience with supporting artists and organisations during the Christchurch earthquakes and immediately after. So we had a first phase, which was about an immediate response, and then a second phase, which was about new ways of working in the new reality. So I think, don't feel like you have to get everything in now, because nobody can predict what that future is going to be, including us. So, but we will be responding to that next lot of scenarios which will inevitably arise, including how we support artists who are working or have been working internationally as well.
Thank you. Thank you. There are no further questions that I can see. Oh, here's one, just arrived. Question from an EVANZ perspective. Who do you see as the most vulnerable venues in this period? Regional, both now and into the future, that has been directed towards you, Megan?
I think the most vulnerable at the moment are the venues that are run by trusts. I think they are run by usually a volunteer board in the community that, and they work tirelessly to raise money to be able to support their venue. They often rely on foundation funding or sponsorship, all sorts of areas like that won't be available. Well, I don't think they'll be as available as they have been. So I think those are the venues that are really going to need support in getting back up. The biggest fear is that some of them may not. So as a whole industry, again, it's about making sure that every venue gets back up and running so that we can have places for all our artists to come and tour in the regions. And it's also really important. I've got a venue that's been closed for 6 years, and the impact now open for 3 weeks and closed. But the impact on our community of not having that venue available to them has been incredible. And the joy and celebration of reopening that venue again was just amazing. And so I'm very acutely aware of the impact that has on a community to not have that creative space for them to all gather.
Absolutely. Kat, there's a question come forward for you. Kat, besides the rangatahi page you mentioned earlier, do you know if there are any dance-specific forums happening? Is it even necessary?
Oh, that's a good question. Necessity is a big one for me at the moment. There absolutely will be. I think Tempo is going to start contributing to that space very soon. And I think, there's some incredible dance artistry starting to happen. I don't know if many people are aware of what's going on at the moment, but there's a lot of dance artists creating quite exceptional digital work. And there's a lot of conversation too. So I think we're just in a position where we need to collate all of those happenings into one space, and potentially Tempo might start moving into that, into looking after that. I'm not aware of any directories currently in New Zealand yet, but watch this space.
Watch this space. Thank you, Kat. A little note has come through, Boosted and a few NZ ticketing companies are working hard to find a way to help provide a portal for streamed events, both free and ticketed. Feel free to get in touch with them with any needs or ideas. So it's been great to feel people being responsive with the resources that they have. There's also some Australian conversations happening along those lines as well. So that is definitely a way that people are looking. But I think it's good to also make sure that it feels like it's coming from the right place as we make those moves, and have this little bit of time to be thinking about how we want to be approaching that. I don't know if we have any more questions. I can't see any more sitting there. I'll just give it another minute or two to see if something comes through. But I think if that is us for today, in a moment, panel, I'll ask you to finish up. Feel free to take your time to add any thoughts that you have, or comments in response to what we've been talking about, or images of hope, or how you're holding your strength in this time. I've got a message here from Dance. Dance has resources for the dance sector for COVID-19.
They do. Apologies. Yeah.
Thanks. Great to see, as Kat's been talking about, the sharing of knowledge and resource in this time. So let's start to wrap this conversation up then. Who would like to go first in their final statements?
I'm happy to go. I think all of this just shows how important connectedness is. I think isolation is such a devastating word because it creates the feeling of loneliness, and I think loneliness kills people. We've got to be aware of that. So I think this connectedness of always talking to each other, listening is incredibly important, and I feel like we're listening a bit more now that we're having to Zoom. We have to actually sit back and listen to what people are saying. And I think that's really important, to listen and just stay connected as much as we can, making sure we're including everybody in the conversation. So I just all I can say is that, really, just let's keep connected.
Kia ora. Thanks, Megan.
Kath here. So I completely support. And one of the things that has been bothering me in the last week or two is not so much how we're all going to get through it, but how we get away from the tyranny of the screen. And I've been reading a lot of information about what people have learned in China and Italy about, things not to do when you're in isolation, so-called. And one of them is constantly scrolling through your feed to see the latest. And whilst we have to stay connected, we also need to stay healthy. And as a community, our immediate tendency is to rush into trying to fix things for people. And that's a really, really good thing to do. It's a great impulse, but it's also a very draining thing to do. And I think we all just need to really think through what the impacts might be on our practice, on the way we communicate, how we might not only survive but thrive in this new environment. And bear in mind that we're only at the beginning of it from New Zealand's perspective. It's just the start. So yeah, I think positivity of thought and deed is really, really important for everybody. to focus on, as opposed to the immediate, oh my God, this is terrible, and I'm just going to go down a big spiral here. So yeah, that's just, I don't know whether that's words of wisdom or not, but that's my offering at this point. There was also one question that I saw popped up but then disappeared, and that was about support for capability building for developing expertise in a digitized world. And yes, that is something we've thought about, and once we've got this initial response package up, we'll turn our attention to our capability building program, which definitely will be able to assist with things like that, which will lead to professional development and creative development for the sector. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Kath. They are words of wisdom. We thank you, especially for answering all of the questions about funding.
No problem.
Kat, over to you.
Yep, total for everything that's been said. I think I just want to speak to artists very quickly and encourage everyone to take the time to grieve the loss of the projects that they had planned out for the year. To slow down, you don't have to continue to be productive. You can actually pull away from that and take the time to go through a process of grieving that loss. I think also too that creativity doesn't have to go outwards. You can express creativity in the mundane, and while we're in lockdown, we can use our creative energies to nurture the whare, to nurture our families. We don't always have to be going out to the masses. And I think I really love what Kath said about the tyranny of the screen. We are being forced toward the screen so much. And I think there will be power in resisting that, and to start turning our creativity into very gentle acts within our homes as well.
Nice.
Kia ora. Thank you, Kat. Thank you for those reminders to go slowly and gently, and to keep breathing through this time. It is a time of immense and unprecedented challenge. My 12-year-old son keeps saying, is this like historic? I'm like, yeah, this is historic. He's like, oh, it's my first bit of big history. And then we go over some of the other bits that he's been part of too. But it's no one could have known this is coming. It's so huge. And it's great that we're looking after each other. And it's also amazing to be able to think of what opportunities, I don't mean career opportunities, I mean redirections of where we were going as a world and a planet. I feel emotional as I say that.
Yeah.
But it is a really, I really mean it. I think the earth is really grateful and for what is happening. So our panel have spoken so beautifully about taking care of each other, about being responsive. There's one final thing that someone noted, that they noting the arts industry, the arts sector is willing to adapt in this, or towards a post-COVID world, but how are we going to ensure that the government will be as responsive? Well, I think let's stay together, let's keep talking, let's use this urgency that has come to the conversation, let's be gentle and kind with each other, but let's be outspoken and loud in our lobbying for what is needed, not just for us in the arts industry, but for our people generally, because this is a time when inequality starts to be seen again. So that's my just little rant that I wanted to add in there before we finish. Thank you so much, people. Thank you so much for all of your questions that have come through. Thank you to Helena and to Heather for sending those questions through as they've come up on the feeds. Thank you to Francis, who's been managing all of the technology for this. Thank you to Louise for your organisation towards this kōrero. Thank you to AK Live and PANNZ for partnering to do it together. Can I mention that next Monday at 11 o'clock, which is when these sessions will happen, there will be David Innes from Auckland Festival, Meg Williams from the New Zealand Festival, Tawhiri, and also Tama Waipara of the Te Tairāwhiti Festival. He's also spokesperson Huia group of the various arts festivals of Aotearoa. If you go to the PANNZ website, there's a lot of links and information, and there will be more after today. Thanks again to Borni Tukiwaho for sending in lots of those wellbeing resources. So have a look at PANNZ. I also just wanted to add that things are changing fast. So the panel did mention before we started that this may be out of date in a week, but for now it will be recorded and people can continue to watch it. Aroha nui to all of you and to all of your whānau. I hope you are well, stay safe, peace from all of us. Thank you, panel members. Thank you, Kat and Megan and Kath. Kia ora koutou katoa.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Namahi.